You are now entering the Cue the Muses podcast. Please reserve submission of any joy meter statistics until after the program.
We're musicians.
Hey, that was a 3 count.
That's how I'm going to sync up the sound very quickly later. Welcome to Cue the Muses, first time ever podcast in the laboratory together in person. We're not doing it remote today.
That's right. And we're going to equally talk over one another in the actual room too, just like we do on the remote thing.
That's right.
Right?
It'll be more exaggerated
I know,
than ever.
We're going to keep doing it.
This is weird. We're in the same room together.
Thanks for watching, guys. This has been something that Ash and I have been wanting to do for a long time. We talked about it ever since you and I and Michael Morgan, the great Michael Morgan, did all this. You
did help with this wall.
Yeah,
I mean, this wall, this was a beautiful collaboration between Michael Morgan and Rich.
Yeah, no, I mean, so a quick rundown, guys. Don't use my fucking name. A quick rundown, guys. So the yellow shocks up there, those are from my '87 Dodge pickup. The violin up there was a violin that Kurt Rogers had signed by Jay Lauren from the band Hurt. Just memorabilia. The drum head over there, that's your drum head that Danny Carey signed.
Yeah, that's a personal drum head where I met Danny Carey, shook his hand, he signed his head that he had just performed on, and it says, "Thanks, Ash." It's in the show.
Yeah.
More than just a background, it's one of the opening scenes in episode 1. If you've seen it, that's what that says, that's what that is. Okay, man, on my 3 count, engage your pedal for transport. 1, 2...
Wait.
What?
On 3 or to 3 count, back to 1.
On a 3 count because we're musicians.
Okay, but you know how confusing that is, right? Like you're telling me it's 3, but that's coming in on 4.
Dude, it's just like playing music, man. Playing 3, I thought you'd kind of dig it.
All right, it's cool, man. Let's just go.
Okay.
You know how confusing that is, right? Telling me we're going on 3, but you're coming in on 4.
Fine, it's fine. Just start the count.
Just start the fucking count, man.
Today.
1, 2.
I'm gonna go on a 4 count instead of a 3.
All right.
Ready? 1, 2,
3.
Ash.
Dick?
Holy shit, Dick.
One of my band's albums there. That's actually my Angle Powerball 2. Right there. It blew up during the writing process. We were in the middle of writing, I don't even remember what song. I think it was Cult Classic. And doing scratch tracks, it made it through about halfway through the scratch track and then just fried. And I called him, I resoldered a few things and got back. But that's what you get when you use tube amps. You know, as a guitar player, that trend of using tube amps seems like it's, you know, it's never going to go away. But more and more people are exclusively using tube amps for studio work and for, you know, one-off shows, and more people are using, you know, digital processing units. There's a couple really good ones, and I think this guy just got probably the best.
I've gone back to the dark side.
He did. In last week's episode of The Ways Ash Disappoints Dick, you didn't get to include that one. After we got done,
right.
he called me and he said, "Oh, I forgot the last way I disappoint you," and he sent me a text of what I think is probably the top pedal on the market.
I
would
think
say
so,
one
man.
of them.
I mean, yeah. The only thing so it's a Fractal Axe effects, but it's not the rack mount system. It's their newer FM9, which is like it is the board itself rather than just a board that attaches to the rack mount. The board is an independent thing, and it has all the effects built into it. It's not quite as powerful as the rack mount, but it's like really close. It's kind of already ridiculously overpowered for what I need it for.
So the rack mount, I don't know, but
Yeah.
is the rack mount a separate unit that would come with just a control pedal?
You would then buy the floor pedal separate, and then that floor pedal would have no screen, and it'd be just stomp switches.
Just
and
controls for
yes,
the rack
for
mount.
that rack mount. And the rack mount is ultimately what makes it more powerful. Is not tonal quality; it's processing power. So it can handle you throwing more effects and things on it.
Yeah.
I will say already in playing with it for a week, just the FM9, which is considered to be 50% of that power, like or 60, between 50 to 60% of the same power as the rack mount, that it's already putting on way more. Just going through the presets, the combinations of effects are way wetter in most cases than I would want to do anyway. So once I go through all the presets, I'm going to dial in my own sounds or manipulate the ones that are there. A lot of me manipulating some of that's going to be probably stripping off some of the wetness that they already have on
taking
there.
away, yeah.
Bring it down a little bit, get a little bit more attack back in again, because I've been kind of working on my speed a bit, and I don't want to lose that with too many delays and launches.
I got to play around with it for a few minutes before we started this, and I didn't notice any latency on anything. Even when you did some of the heavy stacked effects with these ping-ponging, multiple octave things happening with delay and phases and all sorts. Sounds like 18 foot switches running simultaneously,
Yeah.
but there's no latency or anything. It was all acting as it should.
Yeah.
In real time.
And the thing is like there's two things that made me finally go for this, right? I have an analog pedal set. I have my own board. That's what I've been using for Cue the Muses. But the reason that I went over to this was 2 episodes ago, we talked about a movie that's coming out called The Creator. Mm-hmm. And in The Creator, it's coming out in a week or so. And
Really? That's soon.
Yeah, it's coming out on September 29th.
Wow, okay.
So, and me and Tristan are going to go see it, and then I'm going to do another follow-up video for my RC channel on it, because that video did very well.
Yeah.
I got like 300 new subscribers just from putting up that one video.
And
Yeah.
that's the little Canon. It's the little...
It's a little Sony FX3, and I had to choose between that camera and the Canon, and I bought the Canon instead. And so in that video, it causes some controversy, this and that. But the point is, the reason that conversation led me to looking at this board seriously was we were talking about the difference between it and between that Sony camera and film. They elected to use a $4,000 digital camera instead of a $200,000 film camera, and it's like the differences are so imperceptible. You have to be so
trained
engrossed
eye.
in that's right.
And
I can see it.
Well-trained eye.
I can see it, but nobody that normally watches the movie can tell the difference.
Well, nobody who normally watches a movie is looking for it.
Right,
Like
right.
your
They're not
average,
thinking about
your
that.
average person. Me 3 years ago, before I met you,
Yeah,
in depth, I was that person. I went to the movie. It looks great. I wanted to make sure the monster looked real. I didn't want it. I knew I didn't
Totally.
want it to be like fuzzy or a different shade or like a different lighting. I could
Yeah.
see that, but I didn't know what that was.
You're looking through flaws in the effects or
Yeah.
bad story or bad plot. You're focused on this. Yeah.
Now that I've had experience
Yeah.
working with you and getting that little crack, the doors cracked open, I
Yes.
see into that world that you live in every day.
Right.
It's like I see the trailer for The Creator, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can. I'm really looking. Like,
It's so
I guess I
slight.
can see the grainy, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but I'm the guy that doesn't turn the setting on my TV all the way up because the full motion messes with me. I don't
Yeah,
like.
I hate that.
I don't
shit.
like watching.
That soap opera effect is terrible.
Yeah, that's what I call it. It's like too many frames per second, right?
Yeah,
Is it not doing it?
it is.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Hey.
The monitor's so far away. I wanted
Hey.
to make sure it was recording.
We're looking at a very small screen of ourselves. I
We
think
are.
it's
It's very tiny.
reversed somehow.
It's very tiny.
Or the right
It has
way.
reversed. It's flipped on us. So yes, exactly. So it's such a small amount, and what we're talking about is the difference between analog film and digital.
Yeah.
Right? That's been the chasing dream of digital, is to get as good as film.
Yep.
And then we're talking about, we had our episodes, the last 2 episodes, we talked quite heavily about tone and guitars and amps and chasing different things. And I agree, there is a difference in the tube amp, but it also is like so minute. Is it there all the time, or is there just certain little things that you do that on that certain exact thing, then I can hear maybe the artifact, something. And I haven't checked back in on something like Axe effects. I mean, we were talking about the effects we had been using. Man, these, speaking of this wall, these 2 Boss GT8 multi-effects pedals, those were mine. Those were the Kill Clouseau pedal boards that I used in the last 5 years of us performing together. And they were really cool. I ran them through a solid state amp, but I always knew that ultimately I was missing something in the distortion department.
Yeah.
The cleans sounded great. They were really neat effects, but distortion, it sounded a little digitally, you could tell.
Something was always off. And it was, early when you had, it started with distortion pedals. You had overdrive pedals, which are a little different from actual distortion pedals. And distortion pedals use a clipping diode to clip the signal, and it goes bzzz, and that's what makes distortion. That's a really dumb, simple way to explain it. But those early pedals with distortion, they made the zzz, they clipped it and they made that sound, but what they were missing was that naturally amplified tone that came through the speakers. And then you started seeing like the early speaker emulating stuff. Like Line 6 came out. Line 6, we were just talking about this earlier. Line 6 came out with the Veda, which was there after the pod, and the Veda was a head that you could use, and you could program 2 separate modeling amps on one signal.
Yeah.
Basically have
And
blend your
cabinets?
Marshall with your Mesa.
Could you
and
also
you could
do
do
the cabinet
you could do
sizes
cabinets
and
as
stuff?
well. You could program it to play, to blend a Marshall with a Mesa 412 cab with vintage 30s, and you could plug the other one to a Mesa with a Marshall 412 cab with, greenbacks or different speaker combos. It wasn't perfect, but it was like starting to catch, the traction was starting to get there. Now, this is now 20, 30 years later. Now you got people with signature impulse responses, a particular speaker miking and reflex, and you plug that in, and the tone is so close that, I mean, it's just like with the Creator. A trained ear, maybe.
Right.
And that's a maybe.
And that's a maybe.
With this, audio stuff, it's a little different. It's not.
Yeah.
You're not looking at it. You're just hearing it.
Yes.
Maybe someone out there with a trained ear can hear the difference.
Yeah.
I can't. I can tell. I can usually tell. Okay, that band's using a 5150.
Yeah.
Back
But
at like,
it might be a
that's how.
model.
Okay, that's a JCM 800.
Right.
Simple things like that. But now, if it's a 5150 on a Fractal,
Yes.
or a JCM 800 on a Fractal, or an Axe Effects, it's like I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, and I did this to myself, and choosing, making the decision whether to get this unit or not. It's like, all right, let me listen to A/B testing. Let me hear if I can hear the difference on this stuff. And I'm hearing people. You can find this all day long on YouTube, and you start listening back and forth, like, I can't hear the difference. And then you get this other advantage that Kurt Hammett talked about. So this was those were the first 2 things that made me think, all right, I'm going to take a look at what's happening in the modern day of digital audio multi-effects pedals, because I'm all digital in video land. I've never experienced working with film. Digital cameras are the reason I'm able to have a video business. It was the way that I could, financially get into it and have results.
Picture a
that were
team
that
of
big.
guys with film, and they go through and they cut it.
I mean,
and
it's
then
a
they
whole other.
splice
I don't
it.
know anything about it.
It's an impossible art
My
form.
my whole thing is digital. So it's like, well, digital's been good to me. Let me see how it's going with audio. So then I start doing the A/B testing, looking, and then I get to hear this great interview with. Then I start seeing how many people are using Axe Effects. Now I've heard about specifically Fractal and Axe Effects for years.
Is that the same thing, or those two?
Fractal is the company, and Axe Effects is like their premier unit, and then this FM9 is the board itself. I think you could still call it Axe Effects, but FM9 is officially the title of what this multi-effects board is.
Okay.
And, I go to their site, and then I see all the people that are using it. I'm like, oh, wow. And then I start getting on YouTube, and I start seeing all some of the top guys, using them. I'm like, Wow, and it's all different kinds of rock
You
too.
said Satriani.
Oh yeah, I mean all the big
Hammer
guitar
Metallica.
players, and they still use the amps too on a lot of stuff. And you could still I'll probably still use amps for recordings in particular, but for a live setting, I come across finally the I had actually already put myself on the waiting list for one because they were back ordered. And I come across this awesome interview with Kurt Hammett that was recently with the Rick Beato show.
The guy with the bazillion subscriber
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, and he's
Yeah.
a great show, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to hear some of the best musician interviews, that channel is amazing. And so Kurt Hammett's on there recently, and he went into detail for a little bit for a section talking about how they have converted to using the Axe effects for all their live stuff. And just how one of the primary reasons is ever since they recorded, one of the things that made their album From And Justice for All unique in tonal quality was where they really started to explore combinations of amps, right? Stacking amps.
Not just the calves, stacking the heads.
That's right. And so I think they had gotten up to 4 and 5 combinations.
Yeah.
And so this wasn't practical live. So at best, what they were doing is picking out 2 different heads to take with them on the road, and they're trying to dial these in at every venue. And it's always a hit or miss. Like, all the way up until the modern day, hit or miss. The temperature matters, the traveling matters, the humidity matters, how full the house is matters. I guess that's still going to be the case even with Axe. So then they've converted. They're using Axe effects. Now, that doesn't mean that they're also not still using maybe additional pedals. I see a lot of these Axe effects units as their primary bass. And then you can still add on a few signature pedals and run that through if you want to do that.
Yeah, well, it seems like you don't have to use... You use what you need from it.
Yeah.
It's another tool, and it downsizes that overall. I mean, imagine Metallica in their heyday in the 90s running a tour with, how many 412 cabs? Probably carrying 40. You know what I mean? In the bus. And then on top of the cabs, how many different heads, spare heads, so this Axe Effects is one pedal. So you can use it to do 42 different amp heads if you want, or you could use it to run 2 different types of distortion and a clean, and then switch over to the cabinet or the amplifier that you like and run that as well. And then you can use it downtone. And now an interesting interview I watched, really old interview I watched the other day of a backstage with Slipknot with Mick Thompson and Jim Root, from Slipknot. It's like 7 years old. It was on YouTube. But it was with Mick Thompson. He was talking about his amps. I didn't realize he has a signature a Rivera head. He has a signature knuckle head, like the KR7 or something. Slipknot. Mick Root and Slipknot. It's fantastic. Knucklehead's a fantastic amp. But when he was talking, he really quickly said, we go on tour in the States, but we leave gear in Asia. We leave gear in Europe because it's cheaper to have gear there, so you're not shipping it every time you go for a European tour. So somewhere Slipknot has a storage facility at that time with all the amps and the cabinets, guitars and all that stuff. All their European gear stayed in Europe for the European tours every year they would do. With this Fractal stuff, with these, now it's just one pedal. And your guitars. I'm sure they still have 8-10 guitars, you know what I mean?
Probably
You're still switching
yeah.
guitars for tunings and stuff.
But you're right. It's a single pedal that you can take with you, and potentially you can just run that literally to the sound engineer, and they can just run that through your monitors and front of house. You don't need any. Now, I'm not. You can still use an amp. In fact, I do not have a solid state amp anymore. I'm just running mine straight into my Black Star head.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is probably coloring it some, but that's what I want to do right now. 1, I don't have a solid state amp, and 2, I still do want access to the distortion of my Black Star when I want it. So I'm going to add my 2-step channels on there. I'm going to be able to switch on that Black Star distortion when I want to. The thing is that it's one, even if dirtier and less dirty, it's still one type of distortion. And one of the things that I loved about this is I used to have a whole sound bank set up for every song, and I had different types of distortions for different songs. And I missed that, and that's something that you can do with a unit like this, is have an entire scene dedicated towards song. And I'm already, I've got a list growing right now. I've got about 12 distortions that I like. Now, I don't think I'm going to use them all, but I'm surely going to use at least 4 of them, across the soundscape of songs. And that's just great to be able to do that. Plus, when I want to, bypass, Black Star, boom, two presses.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I'll mention is just literally being able to hit a single button, and you go from I think an ND gel. It was a color gel back there, probably fell off. One button, and you got 5 effects that switch on. All of a sudden, you go to another button and switch it on. It switches on 4 other effects and totally different parameters.
Yeah.
And I thought that I'd conquered that a bit with something called the ES8, which is a unit that you can use for your normal analog pedals that allows you to connect your analog pedals. You press one button, and it will trigger whichever combination of pedals and the order that you have them in. And that's an amazing thing, and I do have that. But.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid thing. And you showed it to me when you got the ES8. I use an ES5, and I love it. And
it's great.
The guitar player for my band, it's the remnants of Fighting Giants in a new group, but it's Jeff Withers who plays guitar. Actually, is really looking forward to purchasing your ES8.
I'm selling my ES8 now because I have the Axe, I can't imagine doing analog pedals without one of those units. To be honest with you, I mean, not for the style of playing that I like.
It's so weird. So right now, with our setup, with the band Dave's last night, is Jeff and I'm running an ES5, and I have an overdrive that's linked to a noise gate for my main distortion. Then I have the second channel. There's only 5 channels on it, but they're banks of 5. So the first channel is overdrive with a noise gate. Then it's just a dry signal. So it's just the amplifier, which is usually my 5150. Then the third one is currently I got the string 9. It's Electro Harmonics string 9. And right now I'm only using it for an intro to one song. I'm going to use it more, but that's the only placeholder for that. Then the fourth channel is a dry signal with a delay, and I just got a new reverb pedal, a new quiet reverb pedal, kind of a normal one. It's the Levitation from EQD.
This is your third reverb pedal, right?
This is the third reverb. I got rid of one. This is the third reverb pedal, and that one is delay. That's just a clean delay sound.
Yeah.
And the reverb just makes it pretty.
Yeah.
And then the last channel is the afterneath. That's the really spacey, long kind of modulating reverb pedal that EQD makes. And now I have that bank of 5. And then Jeff has a EQD Astral Destiny. He has a EQD Dispatch Master, which is a combination reverb delay pedal that EQD makes. And then he has a Astral Destiny and another one he got. I don't even know. He is going off the deep end with Earthquaker devices. He's got the new one picked out that he wants to get.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, then he doesn't have an overdrive, but he has a tuner, and he's going to have one more pedal. He's ordered pre-ordered the next pedal.
Yeah.
But he's got them all linked in series, so he has to turn them on as he goes. So he's changing it. That's old school. Everybody who plays guitar knows how to do that.
That's what veered me away from doing it in the first place, and why I got that shit.
Yeah. And
I was so nervous about that.
I don't like pressing buttons with my feet. I don't like juggling buttons.
Yes.
And that's the worst thing. I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
While you're trying to have fun and bounce around and look cool, and you don't look cool when you're not hitting the right button.
And you have to figure out that transition point.
Yeah.
Like, how do I cover this up? Because it's not instantaneous.
You have to write it into the song, and then if it can't be written in the song, then what you have to have another. And that's where, for me, the ES series works.
That's what it'll do. Yeah.
I love it. I don't have any need to switch it, but I have an area where that's where my sounds are.
Yeah.
I've kind of found that.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I want to get is I've ordered the Bit Commander pedal, which is it's it makes a guitar sound like the Super Mario Brothers theme.
Okay,
like silly theme songs.
Well, I've definitely got some weird synthy stuff on this pedal, so we might have to come up with something that's super 8-bit sounding.
I definitely think I always wanted to write an 8-bit song.
Yeah,
the whole thing's 8-bit, and then it bounces back and forth.
Totally into that.
And it goes from real stuff, and then silly stuff. The Contra theme, Street Fighter had some awesome ones.
There's some good stuff.
Yeah.
There's a band called Mini Bosses. I don't know if you've ever heard
Mini
them.
Bosses. No,
Yeah,
no.
you guys can look them up, and they're awesome, and all they do is video game soundtracks with real instruments.
Yeah.
And I mean, you name it, they played it, and it's like it's really really good.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
you realize how good that music was.
Oh, are you kidding
Like
me? Yeah,
video
like,
game music was really there was
under the
scores.
radar.
Yeah.
Under the radar, so many developers had like excellent composers
Yes.
doing 8-bit soundtracks into
Yeah.
video games on what they're working with. Yeah, and it's like for me, the big one is like the Guile theme from Street Fighter.
Oh,
from Street Fighter
okay.
2.
Oh, how did that go?
The Guile theme. I couldn't tell you how it goes,
Yeah.
but I keep a version of it, an 8-bit version, on my playlist. And I keep
Okay.
telling my guys, like,
gotta cover
we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the Guile theme. I mean, August Burns Red did the Zelda theme.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that? The ABR
No, I haven't
did
heard
Zelda.
theirs. Yeah.
It is probably, it's one of the most incredible
I bet.
things.
Zelda's- it's got a good
there's
thing
a
to it.
you can look it up on YouTube. Look up August
On
Burns
LuTube,
Red.
look it
on
up.
the LuTube. go to the Lou, pull up the YouTubes on the Lou, and you'll see the August Burns Red guy dressed up as the Link dude from Zelda. And then the bass player's dressed up as Zelda.
The whole
He's in
show
the dress.
without shoes on. So I'm putting
How
these
is-
shoes on so that way I can cross my feet.
Oh, and then you don't have your
and
bare
look.
your
And then I don't have my
your
bare- so
bare
it still
dogs
looks
hanging out up there.
Professional.
Yeah, no socks too. That's a look these
That's
days.
an Italian thing, and I'm
But
Greek.
no socks. And there's no laces on those shoes.
Fuck no.
I made a joke.
Target, $20.
Kyron's hooked on we've been this will be a little side tangent, folks. This is what a side tangent looks like. We were shopping last weekend.
Yeah.
We went to the Goodwill. Family went to the thrift store.
The
shopping.
Goodwill. The one.
We went to the Goodwill, and Kyron, my son, loves Goodwill shopping, specifically for shoes. And he said, you'll find some cool shoes sometimes in the Goodwill because they all got a story. And and there was a video that I made you watch that your son actually made. Kyron sent a picture and a little video clip of buying a pair of shoes, and then your boy Tristan made the legacy of. I think they were
Those
boat
shoes.
shoes with an anchor on it, and it showed
It's
the
a
whole
great
history
video. I was
of
really
how
proud
they
of
got
his
there.
edit. Yeah.
Yeah,
I might
it's-
have to drop it into this episode real quick.
Yeah, drop a link for it. But yeah, I'm in town tonight, rehearsing with the guys, and it was a really good practice tonight. We talked about
Dave's last night.
For Dave's last night,
Dave.
yeah, for Dave's last night. We talked about it, and I didn't mention it, but the guys, Jeff and Tim specifically, have said that they want to come and be on the podcast.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Well, we want this to be an opportunity for musicians to come on, period. Like, it's not just about
Yeah.
Cue the Muses focused.
Yeah, we want to
However,
talk
we
about
do
Cue the
want-
Muses in every episode, at least once or twice.
I've barely talked about it in the past couple, I think, because we've been on this. This has been like a gearhead show for the last 2 or 3. Sorry, guys.
I
You're riding the rabbit hole of our lives with us. We're just going through a little phase right now where there's a lot of this being discussed.
It's not a phase for me. Well, if it is a phase, the gear thing's been going for about 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. I backed off for so long. You know, I get into it and then I pull out of it. You know, I get into it and I pull out. There's just this before you know it, what happens is it can suck away your music practice time, and when that's sparse, it's like, damn it, I spent the whole night just fiddling with effects and sounds, and I feel like I wanted to make an advancement. You know, I'm still trying to get better. You know, this is a forever pursuit to get as good at your instrument as you can. I like that pursuit, and it hurts when I don't get much time doing it. But lately, the past this summer has been excellent. I've really been able to put a lot more time back into guitar. I just made it more of a priority again.
I just stopped practicing.
Well, this is it. And once he starts playing again, I'm gonna not practice. That's kind of the plan. That's the way it works.
But no, because you took so much time off from playing in general. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I know how that feels. And I think people listening, anybody who plays music, and you guys let us know if you have a story about that, because you take time off, when you come back, 9 times out of 10 you come back with a fire. Like there's just something there.
Yeah.
And I search for that, a lot of ways to do that. without having to take a month off. I do
Yeah.
take a month off from playing sometimes, and then I realize that, but then the next time I pick any of my guitars up, and I did find, now I'm older, I'm almost 40, I've been a steady job, steady life kind of thing, and I still buy guitars like a kid. I don't buy expensive guitars. I can't afford expensive guitars, but I buy $200 used guitars more than my girlfriend probably wants me to. But now what that does in my experience is I like to play with different guitar pickup combinations. I've really ever since Brett kind of blew my mind about this single coil thing.
Yeah.
With one of his band's tracks, one of the Virgo's album's tracks, I said, man, that tone is so good. What'd you do it with? He said, lipstick pickup, Dan Electro baritone. I was like, the fuck it was. Like, what?
Yeah,
he was like,
kinda
that
threw you
guitar
off.
right there. I was like,
Yeah.
no way. I just always thought that you had to have like the active humbuckers, the big humbuckers are just the way. Humbuckers are just quiet and thick and fat, usually. Then you have different levels of them, and then I start playing with pickups, playing with combinations, particularly with coil taps, single coil taps. And with Dave's last night, there's 2 songs. Another song we wrote this evening, we were kind of working, this is the second time working on this song at the practice session. It's a song 2 that I'm single coil the whole time. Like, one song, I'm neck single coil the whole run. And then it's another one single coil the whole run. I modified that guitar right there and put P90s in it because it's kind of a fat, bassy single coil. But just that tone chasing for me, and we're getting back to what I was saying earlier about having multiple guitars now, is they sound so different. You play one guitar for a while, and then when you pick another one up, it's inspiring. It's so different. It has
that's funny because like
another
you're doing the physical changes, and I'm like, just give me a bunch of different digital
now
effects.
Now you're gonna hit
and
3 or
that's
4
what
on the Fractal. You hit 3 or 4 buttons.
And
like,
it's the same way
man.
as I started writing like one of the cheesiest rock riffs I've ever come up with the other day, and it was completely instigated by the sound of this distortion that I haven't had ever. And I'm like, this is totally old school. And it started being like
so
this
good.
cheesy, and I was loving it. It was so fun to play, and I was like, oh man, I never even began to play something like that with the Black Stars distortion. Not that anything is wrong with the Black Star distortion. It's just very specific.
Yeah, when you have a sound, you write to that sound.
Yes,
It's that. It just is. It happens.
Yeah.
You don't write a different sound with that sound. You write to that
Which
sound.
is, and there's also an interesting thing. So for just guitar practice in general, one of the healthy things to do is to go over to an acoustic guitar for stints.
Yeah.
Build up your dexterity. It's harder. I kind of, my metaphor is it's like a bicycle versus a motorcycle. The electric guitar can be so powerful when you run it through distortion. You can hit a single note and let it sing all night long. You can't do that with an acoustic. You have to keep working it to get those notes to stretch out. You're going to have to be... It's a different animal, and it makes your electric playing better.
Yeah.
But some people, I think, go a little bit overboard on like, I'm doing just acoustic for et cetera. It's like, that's totally fine. But the thing is, if you're in songwriting mode, you are going to write different music on an electric guitar with distortion or some certain delay pattern than you are on an acoustic. And so that's totally fine. But just keep in mind, if you're in a band, a full band with distortion stuff, not all that acoustic stuff is going to translate over directly to the songs that you want to write with your band.
It won't, and it's its own thing.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago, Kurt Rogers and I were in a lot of groups. We used to have a common saying between the two of us was, man, you could always take an electric song and play it on acoustic, and it's awesome. But you can't always take an acoustic song and play it on electric. Like, it didn't transfer over. It always transferred easily one way, a lot more difficult to transfer the other way. With like bands like, those acoustic bands, there was one, Days of the New, Travis Meeks and Todd Whitner and them guys.
Yeah, I definitely listened to quite a bit of Days of the New.
Great album.
Yeah.
Super huge sound, all acoustic, weird alternate tunings and stuff. And I treat an acoustic as a whole nother instrument.
Yeah.
It's a guitar still, but I don't play acoustic like electric. I don't pick up an acoustic and try to play. I do sometimes, but I mean, like, I usually, if I'm writing on an acoustic, I'm writing to that acoustic.
Yes,
and I'm writing something that I know I can't do on electric. Like I purposefully try
Right,
to find that area
Yeah.
where like I'm using this to this extent, and then vice versa with an electric guitar. Particularly with, you know, ever since I found delay and the delay reverb combination for me, that was like, oh, it changed everything. And then volume swells and stuff like that. Like just that, this stuff that I didn't do when I was young. Like when I was young, okay, you play a riff, the riff needs to sound like this, you need to get heavy, you can play this riff, and then the soundscapes, you know, I didn't learn how to play lead because a lot of times it was just one guitar player, so I just wrote guitar parts.
Well, me too. Kill Cluso is a one guitar. Yeah, you're the first experience I've ever had of writing with another guitar player.
And isn't it completely different?
It's totally different because, you know, I remember doing an interview with Kelly Love from Eli, because I've made all their big music videos, right? And he is an insanely good guitar player. He's got tons of guitars. He's been playing for decades, and
local legend here in
he really is.
Tallahassee
Kelly
area,
Love's
Florida Panhandle.
amazing. And you know, just talking to him about guitar in general and his whole approach, I actually kind of forgot what was the thing that you were.
Well, I was talking about playing with another guitar player.
Oh yeah. So he was just he was actually territorial about them taking on another guitar player in the Eli band.
Oh yeah.
Now he wasn't to the point of like no go, but he wasn't excited about it per se. And when they did bring in the other guitar player, he realized that it was actually liberating because he could do so many more things now, and he didn't have to hold it down. That's the thing about one guitar, is that you kind of got to hold it down the whole time still, because once you escape, it's the same thing with the bass. You know, when the bass, I think one of the reasons, you can do solos as a bass player, you absolutely can. But there is a meat to the music that is just gone when the bass player goes off on a solo, right?
The bottom drops out.
The bottom drops out.
Gone.
And when you have two guitar players, somebody can be holding down. You can, and what I like is trading back and forth. You know,
call and response. Yeah,
that's right. And you know, and depending on what the part is, you can just play whatever. This whole concept of a lead guitar player and a rhythm guitar player just doesn't compute with me. It's whatever the song needs, and whoever comes up with whatever.
That's like, it should be part of the woke movement. Like there's no
you
rhythm
don't need
and
that.
lead guys anymore.
Yeah, that's like I never quite understood that.
Yeah, let's
shit.
not beat one guy down.
Why would you designate that? Obviously, both guitar players are capable of playing.
Izzy was just as good as Slash, and nobody remembers Izzy. They only remember the top hat and the abs.
So it's like it's been that I would say the same thing. It's been liberating. You know, it's really neat to be able to do like just accent something, and that's actually filling it out more. Having that opportunity, but it's still intricate and an interesting part because the other guitar is doing something. Being able to hold back or being able to do more single note stuff, and then the bottom doesn't drop out and all that.
Breaking the mold, doing not doing a traditional rhythm lead bass drum, like finding out where the fun parts are, and to add on to that, like where I'm at. And I was just talking to this with my guys. You know, I play music. I specifically play music with a lot of people. I love writing with different people. Yeah. I used to.
You play with a lot of people.
James Hetfield had an interview one time that I agree for him, and he said, "I have no need to be in any other bands than Metallica. Anything I ever want to do, I can do in Metallica." And it's like, you're absolutely right, James, because at the end of the day, you and Lars, you are Metallica. That's I don't see him doing anything else. I am not James Hetfield, and I found early I played with a certain group of guys, kind of closed in, didn't really play with anybody else, but I found the more and more people that I play music with, and not just one-offs, like really like writing music with you, writing music with my guys, writing music with another group of people, writing music, helping other people write music. Like I absolutely love it, and I feel that it brings more to my own table to share with other people, and it just makes me more confident and expanding my kind of sonic territory, so to speak.
It makes total sense. It's just like an MMA fighter, right? You know, the more gyms they go to and the more people they roll with, or the more people they spar with, the more they're just a more diverse. And in that aspect, it's like I wish I had more time to participate and collaborate more than I do.
Yes.
But literally, you know, Kill Clouseau was the band for me. I mean, I did like 2 minor bands learning to play guitar kind of stuff
for you in that
yeah. So your it's so funny. Like there's such an opposite dynamic of how we're getting to practice our music and come up with the composition choices that we do and all that. And I think at the end of the day, what that ends up being is that it keeps, when we combine forces, we're coming at it from 2 such different directions. And we have so many middle grounds that we both mutually love, and then these sectors that just go off into like, I'm not that crazy about that, and I'm not that crazy about that, you know. But that's like that unique blend, and then you have the Cue the Muses thing, and then we endorse that more with the multiple singers. So you can watch Cue the Muses at cuethemuses.com.
Go to YouTube.
It's a show, guys.
Cue the Muses, plural. It is a web series. We do things in this laboratory.
This laboratory
all
is where it all
of these things
starts.
do stuff.
Yes.
There's things out there, and we use a thing in here, that thing up there off camera that you can't see, to go inside of people's minds and write music with not them, but their inner creative muse.
Hence Cue the Muses.
Hence Cue the Muses.
And then that's all to battle an evil AI.
I realize that like a lot of people don't understand what Cue the Muses means. Like,
yeah, I don't think you would until you watched.
And I feel like even if you did watch it, I feel like, you know, you may still not know. Especially with episode 1.
Episode 2, I feel like it all comes together. It's like, what is this? And then, boom, you get it.
Yeah. Now, leading into what I haven't seen yet, but what I know what's coming. I know what's coming next in episode 3. Now, there's a couple of pictures floating around the internet.
Privately.
Both have made one as profile photo.
Oh no shit! I didn't know that. Okay.
So both of you're not in trouble, but there's a little bit of confidentiality there. But there's a character in this next one, in the next episode.
Yeah.
And I'm not revealing.
Well,
that
character appears in the first trailer at the very end.
Yep, at the very end of the first trailer.
So it's okay that it exists.
Now he is a very large gentleman who we need to somehow convince to let us strap him in a chair and put a helmet on him and link in and dive into his brain. And he's not super keen on the whole savvy, you know, let people do things to me that I don't want done. And this episode gets a little rough. People die.
Well, people do die in it. And what's happening is I've got all that footage loaded up. I've been going through it. This is stuff that we filmed, this is a little depressing to me because I see the date that it was filmed, and it was filmed literally as we approach October. We will hit the 2-year mark from when we filmed it.
Time is such a crazy thing.
Crazy. And I was like, obviously, in every way, this project has turned into a much larger. It's a learning experience making a show like this. Even with as many videos as I've made for clients, literally thousands of videos I've made, it's still different to make a scripted series. It's very, very involved. And then to combine it with the music videos that get as visually extravagant as I'm trying to do, it's just, it's a time, it's a time hole, time suck.
It's a time suck.
But it's fun, it's great. I'm not complaining. I just, it's moving very much slower than I originally wanted it to. But Dick is over here tonight. We're getting a little later here, so what we're going to do is we're going to cast off from you guys.
So we have no idea.
I'm sure we've run a good little course of time here, so you guys have probably already turned off, and you're not even hearing us.
Well, I will say, if you haven't turned off yet, if you have not turned off yet, I would like to formally ask if you would like to help us in any way to keep this thing going, to keep it on a time, because it's slowing down more and more because life is not, conducive to doing things like,
Like
this
this.
at
This
no
is so
budget.
good.
If you want to help, we have some merchandise. Go to the website, hit the links. We have t-shirts. We have some new designs coming out. We have some really cool stuff coming out. The guy, not to go crazy, his name is Jade Daniel. Jade Daniel did all the artwork for Fighting Giants except for the second updated logo with all the weapons, but the comic books, all that artwork in the first, in the visual EP for the Giants. Jay has done work for my new group, Dave's Last Night. He is my tattoo artist. He is a guitar player here in Tallahassee, and he is a great friend. And he's also working on the next Cue the Muses bit of artwork that's coming out.
Yeah.
We're gonna have
It's like a logo.
Yeah,
We've
it's-
never had a logo, really.
We've got the font. You designed like the font, the Cue the Muses font.
I designed the font by finding two fonts I
He
liked
found-
and put them together.
You know, there's art in that. It takes there is something to that. That's how you create pedals, ladies and gentlemen. You take two different pedals and you combine two things they do, and then you have a new pedal.
That's
And
it. So
then you gotta get a pedal.
difference?
So stay tuned. We're gonna release some new merchandise stuff, some new looks, some new logos,
Yeah.
some new cool fun stuff and things to buy. And if please help us out in any way. We'd love to sell some things. I'm a terrible salesman on those things.
Anything you want to contribute's cool. It's just going towards helping us be able to take off a little bit more time to keep working on things.
And I know money's tight. Even give us a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, and a share.
That's the thing. If there's the share and letting people know that it exists. If you don't want to financially contribute, it's fine. If you like what we're doing, please let people know about the show. And the podcast is the podcast, and this is fun. But it all kind of revolves around this show that we want to be able to make more episodes of and more albums for, because it's an album in the show, right? Every episode reveals a new song off of the album, and in the next episode, we reveal a new song, and Dick is about to walk into the main studio section with me, and I'm going to show him some raw footage. I mean, that's really some outtakes and some raw footage as I've been curating episode 3. It's not put together yet. I mean, there's parts of it that are put together from other scenes, but anyway, we're going to enjoy a little bit of this raw footage, and we will catch you on the next podcast next week. And I think that's it. It'll probably be back to remote.
Yeah, we'll be back to remote. We're going to work on. Hopefully, we'll work on a guest next week. It didn't work out this week. I'm going to talk. I got a couple ideas. So you guys take care. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you making it all the way to the end. If you did, let me know you did, and tell me how many numbers I held up at the end of the video.
Oh snap! Whew, big test. Peace, guys.
Later. Catch you later.
Catch you later.
Catch you later.
Ash! Ash, he's moving! Come here! You've been in a coma for almost a year. The Normans attacked you. They were trying to steal your documentation on shutting down hormone.
We finished your mind travel machine.
I had a scientific partner in the mind travel machine build, Dr. Cthulhu.